This is Chuck Huber, the voice of Android 17. You're listening to Anime Seekers. You better be, or I'm coming for you. Dragon of the Darkness, Flame!
Jedi Squadron is a podcast run by the Anime Secrets website. Check us out at animesecrets.org for more anime, video game, tokusatsu, and now Star Wars content. Remember to follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts today.
Hello, new Padawans, and welcome to the Jedi Squadron podcast. Here, you will be taking lessons in the many pieces of the Star Wars universe, whether it be the movies, animated series, video games, comics, and etc. This is your training into becoming a Star Wars fan as part of the Jedi Squadron. May your training go well, and may the Force be with you, young Padawans. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Jedi Squadron podcast, presented by animesecrets.org. I'm your host, Nathan Bassah.
And I'm Rizwan Merchant.
And today, we are taking a look at the 2-episode premiere of the latest live-action series to be on Disney+, that being The Acolyte, which is the very first live-action Star Wars series to take place outside of the Skywalker saga. In this case, it's taking place during the High Republic era, which for those of you who just got to Star Wars yesterday, is pretty much an era similar to the Knights of the Old Republic era of Legends, taking place hundreds of years prior to the events of the films, back at a time when, the Jedi were, at the height of their power before their eventual collapse and rise of the Empire. So, now Dave Filoni is not involved in this show, unfortunately, but I still think we're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to take a look at the first 2 episodes here, and then we're going to review each episode as it airs. Just do a quick review. So, I think we're going to have a lot of fun taking a look at this. So, with that being said, we got a lot to talk about since this is a premiere. So let's jump right in. So, the timeline hasn't been specified around like what year it is, but it probably is at the very least probably at least like maybe 200 BBY, or it could be definitely sometime. But it's also important to note that this does take place a significant period of time after the High Republic era officially begun with the book Light of the Jedi, which I'm reading, by the way, and I'll definitely be reviewing on the podcast at some point. But with that said, the episode opens up on the planet Ueda. A mysterious assassin woman named Mai confronts the planet's local Jedi, Master Indara. Master Indara is played by the same woman. Her name escapes me, but she played Trinity in the Matrix films, which that's awesome. Seeing her be a Jedi after, especially with how the action is directed in these movies, feeling very reminiscent of like the series, with how with a much higher use of wire works and other type of martial arts. It's kind of fitting that, a star from the Matrix movies, which was one of the big game-changing movies for those types of things, is in it. And her name is Carrie-Anne Moss, by the way. Sorry that her name slipped my mind for a second. But anyway, May, she apparently has this vendetta against a group of Jedi, which we're not sure entirely what's happening yet. But she goes after Indara, and long story short, there's a huge fight that she basically lures Indara into a brawl by attacking patrons of the bar, and it ends with Maya killing Indara, by stabbing her after baiting her with, trying to throw a dagger at an innocent bystander. And then we cut to elsewhere, where a woman, Mechneck, which, by the way, the name Mechneck is kind of a silly name to give. I mean, they are aware that the word mechanic exists in the Star Wars universe, right? Not really sure what Mechneck is supposed to mean.
I was confused when I first heard it because I was like, so are you just a mechanic that precludes the existence of the astromech droids? Or,
Yeah.
I mean, what are y'all?
But yeah, she's working on a ship owned by the Trade Federation, which, yes, it's the same Trade Federation that we later see in the Phantom Menace. It's once again it is just like it is in the Phantom Menace. It is run by Nemoidians, although this is almost certainly the Trade Federation in its early days, before they create like a massive droid army and decide that they're going to invade Naboo. Which, by the way, that's of course like a really nice touch because I mean, the Phantom Menace's 25th birthday is still fresh on a lot of Star Wars fans' minds. So that was definitely a genius touch by the writers because everyone is going to recognize that. Um, but so two Jedi Knights approach Osha. They arrive on the ship. We have Jedi Knight Yord Vantar and his Padawan Tassi Loa, which I'm pretty sure Tassi Loa is a Zygerian, I think, if it's the same character, which we saw Zygerians first established. They were like those wolf like characters. Like we saw them in the Clone Wars, and I think we also saw them in at one point in the Bad Batch too.
I thought
Like
they
they
were
were
in
very.
Rebels.
They might have been in Rebels. I do know for sure that they were in Clone Wars season 4. Um, but I can't remember in Rebels, although that doesn't mean they might have been in Rebels though. But yeah, she is. But yeah, I'm pretty sure she is a Zygerian. So it's cool to finally see Zygerians in live action because that's one alien species I don't think we've seen in live action until now. Um, but they arrived to confront her as part of their investigation into who killed Indara, and it's here that we learned that Osha was previously part of the Jedi Order. Her family was killed on the planet Brendok, and she was 8 when she joined, but then she left the Order very recently. She gets taken into custody, but then her ship, while it's in transit, the inmates stage a prison break, and they send the ship spiraling toward a nearby planet as they escape in escape pods, and Osha is left on the ship as it crashes on the nearby ice planet Karlak. And it's there that she has a vision of her past, learning that Mai is still alive. Which, by the way, Karlak, another planet that we've seen before. It was originally established in season 4 of the Clone Wars. A bunch of things happened on that planet, but probably the biggest thing that everyone is going to remember is that it's the planet where Ahsoka Tano met Bo-Katan for the very first time in season 4.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember that.
Now on Coruscant, Jedi Master Sol, he is Osha's old master. He gets informed of Osha's arrest by Jedi Master Vernestra Rowe. She dismisses his skepticism over Osha being responsible for Indara's death because she wants to wrap up the murder mystery and keep it covered up so that the Jedi's political enemies won't use it to undermine them. And another Easter egg to note here is that Vernestra Rowe, she is a very prominent character in all of the High Republic novels. I haven't gotten to the point where she appears in Light of a Jedi, but she originally appeared here. She's appeared in most of the books, although I from what I know, I think that she's a bit like she's almost certainly a bit younger in the book here, but like by here she's become like a big respected Jedi Master, and I think they're trying to imply that she's on the council here, the High Council on Coruscant. But again, like I mean, and she wasn't part of the council back then. And also, she is and I always I can't figure out for the life of me how to pronounce this alien species, but she is a Mirialan, which this is a famous alien species. It's the same species as Jedi Master Luminara Unduli and her former Padawan Barrisophie. So that's pretty cool. Nice to see them in live action again. But the attempted escapees inform the Jedi Order of Osha's location. Sol gets dispatched to Karlak to find Osha. Yord joins him and his new Padawan, Jeki Lon, who's a Thelan human hybrid. She's his new Padawan to find her. And Sol actually reveals the two about Osha's past on what happened on Brindok, which apparently wasn't in her file, which I think is probably going to play a huge important thing in the later episodes, but we'll get to that when we get to it. And they find Osha, they save her as she nearly falls to her death, and she and Sol have a bit of a reunion, and then episode 1 ends as Mai confronts a masked figure wielding a red lightsaber. We're supposed to just assume that he's a Sith, who makes a speech about how attacking a Jedi with a weapon is useless, and only an Acolyte can destroy what the Jedi stand for.
And that's the end of episode 1.
Which, by the way, don't you think the ending of some of these episodes just comes so abruptly?
This one, no. Next one, yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Because this one, it kind of ended great because I liked it ending with that scene of the Sith Lord quoting the, I guess it's called like the Sith Code, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So I just like that he says "peace is a lie," which is the first line or part of the first line of the Sith Code, which is
well, he doesn't say that until he doesn't say that, but like another character says it in the next episode.
I thought it was him that said it this episode. My bad.
But
oops.
I especially like that.
Oh, I remember now who it was. Okay, we're good.
Yeah, I especially like that final bit though, where this Sith Lord is saying that like trying to kill Jedi with a weapon is useless, because I feel like, and especially after I kind of read some reviews, and just kind of the more I'm thinking about it, this is like kind of low key trying to, and one of the people that recommended this to me, by the way, here's the obligatory reference, is Star Wars Explained, who still look up to that guy, but he like they're suggesting that like even though this isn't going to happen for another 100 years or so, this is kind of setting the stage for Palpatine's eventual eradication of the Jedi, because in the opening battle, before Mai gets into a fight with Indara, it's become pretty clear that at this point in the galaxy, the Jedi are very revered and respected. They're kind of seen as like these invincible people, but not only that, but like they're loved by everybody, because like Mai walks up to Indara and says, "Hey, I want to fight you," and then everybody just starts laughing at her like, "What? You think you can beat a Jedi in a fight? How drunk are you?" So
apparently not that drunk.
yeah, but like the important part is to not just destroy the Jedi and what they stand for, but you have to have the galaxy start to like see them as flawed, because that was a huge part of Palpatine's plan to eventually eradicate the Jedi. Because one of his schemes in the Clone Wars, which they go into a bit more detail about this in the books, but like he one of the big, besides using the Clone Wars as a catalyst for him to be constantly given all of this like unchecked power from the Senate, was to have the galaxy slowly over time develop a different perspective of the Jedi, where like you guys are supposed to be the keepers of the peace, but you can't end the war. And that would dispel this whole like deification of the Jedi, to the point where when the time for Palpatine to eliminate the Jedi finally came, no longer were the Jedi being seen as these invincible and great peacekeepers. They were seen as like ultimately failures, which is why no one was able to really had any trouble when Palpatine announced that the Jedi were all killed. And I feel like this is planting the seeds of that eventually happening many hundreds of years in the future.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely I can see that being the case.
But I just want to say this one other thing. I love, and I'll go into a bit more detail in the next episode, but I love how the opening of the episode kind of leaves it a little bit, kind of leaves it a bit open that Osha might have been the person to kill Indara, especially since she wakes up and then her friends are asking her like, "Hey, how come you didn't hang out with us on Nar Shaddaa last night?"
Yeah.
As if to imply, "Oh, so she did kill Indara," but then they quickly dispel it because this is obviously going to be kind of a murder mystery type of show, but it's no, but thankfully they're not gonna, constantly go back and forth over whether or not Osha did it. It's not really a who done it type of murder mystery. It's a more like, why is Mai trying to do all this?
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And yeah. Um I think it's also interesting that so I've been all over Reddit since watching the episodes last night, and I find it so interesting. What did you think of Master Indara? I'm kind of curious right now.
I mean, she came off as a, I mean, she just kind of came off as like, a typical wise Jedi Master who, who was trying to, she doesn't want to attack. She's looking for the peaceful solution, like a typical classical type of Jedi. Like, I mean, when you watch her fight with Mai, she doesn't even pull out her lightsaber until she believes it to be absolutely necessary. So, she just kind of came off as like, a typical wise Jedi Master. But, the fact that she was like there with some of the patrons at the bar probably implies to me that like she's a very friendly Jedi Master who wants to like impart wisdom and other things onto the citizens. Like she's very involved in like the planet Ueda in a very good way, I guess you could say.
Yeah. Yeah, I say that because I thought it was interesting that a lot of the hate about Indara is that they wanted Indara to last longer because they thought she was a fantastic character. And I thought she was an interesting character, but I didn't think she was like that critical to the story or that interesting to be that upset about it.
Yeah, I think she was more just kind of meant to be a catalyst to like set up the rest of the plot.
Exactly. And I mean, there's other really cool Jedi in this. I mean, I'm not complaining.
Yeah, I would definitely, but to kind of wrap up with my thoughts on this, and we could talk about the other characters after we finish wrapping up the next episode. But I would probably say that I mean, it was a solid enough episode. It definitely caught my interest a lot.
Yeah.
Not perfect by any means. Like I probably kind of wish that the episode might have ended a bit more on just showing Osha and Soul's reunion, and maybe not focuses, and maybe not just kind of shoehorning in that Sith Lord ending at the end. But other than that, it was still pretty solid. I think it's an 8 out of 10 in my
Yeah,
opinion.
that's what I was gonna give it. Yeah, because that was definitely an 8. I thought it was a really good opening episode. It set up everything pretty well. It gave us most of the main players, as far as I can tell. We got a feel for most of the characters, which we'll get into more detail on later on, obviously. But it did a good job as a first episode setting things up. Um, I have no complaints with it, honestly.
Yep. But to move on with episode 2, it opens up with May arriving on the planet Olega. She targets Master Torben at the planet's local temple, and she's not able to get to him because he's in this meditative stance where he's not talking to anybody, and he's apparently been that way for 10 years. And she meets with a guy named Kimir. He's a former smuggler who provides her with a poison to break Torben's shield and kill him. And she does, while confronting Torben on, why he did what he did, because like he apparently, so all throughout this series, it's very clear that something very serious happened on Brendok. So all we know is that the Jedi were there. there was a big fire on Brendock, and everyone died except Osha, but we don't know how the fire was created. And it's very clear, implying that, the Jedi are trying to like keep something covered up. We don't know what's going to happen, and we probably won't know until at least like the third or second to last episode of the show. But that's the big thing. But we know that Torben apparently, might have had something to do with it, and he apparently felt so bad that he took like a penitent like oath for what he did, hence why he was in the meditative stance. And then he gets killed by Mai, and the murder attempt gets reported, and Sol and the crew, they head over to Olega with Osha there. And now it originally looks like Osha might have been responsible for Torben's death, but then Yord of all people quickly reveals that she's innocent since he was following her. And they get some information out of Kamir by having Osha disguise herself as Mai in order to figure out that he gave the poison. Then they try to confront Mai, but Sol doesn't let Osha do it because she's full of anger and grief. There's a big fight between Sol and Mai, during which Sol tries to read Mai's mind and finds out that even she doesn't know who that Sith master was that she reported to at the end of the episode 1. And she escapes, although she's confronted by Osha. Briefly, she learns that she's still alive. Mai escapes. She confronts Kamir, threatening to kill him for ratting her out. But then he overpowers her and says that he can take her to the planet Kofar. Why is Kofar important? Well, that's because her next target lives on Kofar. That target is a Wookiee Jedi called Kelnaka. And that is how episode 2 ends.
And see, that's more abrupt.
Wait, what'd you say?
And that's more abrupt.
Yeah, far more abrupt.
That ending is way more abrupt and out of nowhere. Like, what?
Yeah.
So I want to start off by saying I was very surprised but intrigued by Jedi Master Torben's meditative stance that he was doing. I had never really seen that before, and I thought it was a pretty interesting concept that they had stuff like that in the Jedi Order, that you could do that if you were wanting to for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Makes me wonder, like, does this grant them a much more focused meditative thing to let them see further into the Force, or is it just a way to escape into another world and kind of like the equivalent of Jedi drugs?
Yeah, probably something more like the latter.
That's what I was kind of thinking, because if he's guilty, why would he stay in there forever? He's not focusing on anything. He's just kind of trying to escape into what I'm going to call Jedi drugs.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I think this is where the Acolyte really starts to shine a lot more, because we get a lot more info and details about Osa, her twin sister, and just how her master fits into the entire puzzle of like how he met her and helped her come to the Order. And we kind of learned that he kind of pulled a Qui-Gon before Qui-Gon and taking an older Padawan as his Padawan.
Mm-hmm.
And he knew that she had attachment, but he didn't think it was bad enough to be a problem. Which sounds kind of familiar to me if you think about episode 1.
Yeah, but I mean, again, like that mindset probably was a bit more common because, again, like the intention with Qui-Gon was that Qui-Gon was like the last of a dying breed of Jedi, so it definitely makes sense for there to be more Jedi with that type of mindset.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, I just want to say here that, like, I love how, this series, like, the reason why, it's kind of intrigued me a bit more is that I love, like, this could easily with the plot not work as well because we the audience know that Osha is innocent, but we don't really know. But the rest of the series doesn't know that Osha. The rest of the people don't know that Osha is innocent, and they could have easily just used this plot of this episode to continue that, especially when it looks like Osha is going to be mistaken for the person who killed Torben. But no, they're not wasting their time kind of going back and forth over whether Osha is guilty or not. They're focusing strictly on the whole why is May trying to kill these people? And I really like that. It's a very intriguing plot. And, it's definitely great writing. I think that made a lot of I think that they've made some of the characters interesting. Like Osha, I I can't give you a rating on how I feel about Osha because I really need to know like more about like why she left the order and all that. But she definitely has a great relationship with Soul. They definitely come off as like a typical father-daughter duo. So I really like them. Um Yord, I mean, I don't. Yord could easily be annoying, but I just think it's kind of funny how he's a very by the book type of Jedi, and he always talks with this like matter of fact, like he always talks with so much confidence, and yet 90% of the time he always just ends up being wrong.
Yord
Like,
isn't annoying. He's just a depiction of what the Jedi were like in the High Republic.
yeah,
And I don't think that's necessarily annoying. I think it's a nice little insight into how the Jedi typically were back then. Because you see it not only in him, but a little bit in oh god, what's her name? Vanestra.
yeah.
Like, she's kind of the same way, if I'm being honest with you. She's very by the book. She's very quick to want to, handle business and be done with the matter. And
Yep.
she thinks she knows everything. Which leads me to a plot point if you want to move in that direction.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I find it funny. So the Acolyte opens with the blue text on screen, kind of giving some background, but not in the crawler type of way, in more of a here's text on the screen to read. And they mention that the Republic and the Jedi Order are at peace, but they're not really at peace at this point. They've had some conflicts in the past, like they've had wars and stuff, but not the entire galaxy were involved in the war. So, what do they constitute as peace?
I think it's more like relative peace, like when you compare it to like the Clone Wars, where the entire galaxy is at war, while when it comes to peace here, maybe there's like some little minor planetary civil wars. I mean, and again, I don't know all of the events that take place in the High Republic. I mean, right now the main thing that I'm the main plot of the Light of the Jedi is that there's like this big thing called the Great Disaster, but even that's just where there's like where like a ship collides with something in the middle of hyperspace and it causes the entire ship to like blow apart, and then there's all these shards of the ship like just coming out of hyperspace toward this planet, threatening to like wipe all the planet out, kind of like a million asteroids about to collide with a planet and wipe out all life. And that and the Jedi have to resolve that and then figure out how to like what caused it. So there might have been like minor incidents here and there, but it's nothing that like threatens the entire fate of the galaxy. Which, okay, that sounds a little callous since
Yeah.
the fate of an entire planet being threatened by like a ship blowing apart. Obviously that's horrible, but when you compare it to like in the Clone Wars, where like the galaxy's like very like way of order is possibly going to collapse, kind of a little bit more tame. Which again, I feel so horrible saying that, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, definitely. But, it's kind of funny that we have this idea of peace in this time period, because even Obi-Wan in New Hope was kind of saying that there's peace before the Empire came around. I was like, not really. The Jedi were kind of going down at that point. Like, in episode 1, or maybe it was episode 2, or maybe both of them, Yoda and Mace are saying that their ability with the Force is kind of dwindling. It was episode 2.
Yeah.
And that they weren't able to sense things that any Jedi should have been able to see from, a mile away. And, Luke comments on it later saying that they were so blind. So I think it's interesting that we're seeing some kind of fraction here of the same type of thing, but then also the other thing that kind of links into it a little bit is that Vernestra is more interested in wrapping this up quick to cover it up so that the Jedi's political enemies don't find out, which kind of implies that the Jedi are at odds with somebody, and it's a big deal.
Yeah, that, and to me, that, probably speaks a lot, because keep in mind, okay, so I now have the official year where this takes place. This takes place in a 132 BBY. So this takes place like many years after the High Republic era officially begun. So for all we know, this whole series could probably be meant to kind of be the beginning, because to try to be the beginning, because so this takes place 100 years after Light of a Jedi, because Light of a Jedi is 232 BBY. So this could be like seen as like the official beginning of the Jedi slowly declining into what they
Yeah.
are by the prequel era, where they've become so arrogant and so blind that that a Sith Lord is able to rise to power right under their noses and then just eradicate them.
Yeah, definitely what I'm kind of thinking as well.
Yeah, and again, it's a slow process. I mean, it's going to take, I mean, this is like 100 years before the Battle of Naboo, and then you have to wait another 10 years for the Clone Wars to break out, and then another 3 years for the Great Jedi Purge to take place. So there's a long time before the Jedi are going to be wiped out. But I mean, just like how the Roman Empire didn't collapse in a day, so too is the Jedi Order isn't going to collapse in a day. It's going to take place over like hundreds of years.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, yeah, I agree with what you just said. And um yeah, so I know you gave your thoughts on some of the characters already, so I'm gonna go ahead and give mine.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yord, like I said, I don't necessarily think that he's annoying, but he's definitely more of a good portrayal of what the Jedi are mostly like back then, so I'm okay with it. Soul is probably my favorite character so far in the series. He's just like another Qui-Gon, a bit quirky, but really wise and strong and capable, and I just love that about him. Um, Osa is interesting, but like you, I need a little bit more info on her backstory to fully get my thoughts on her straight. I will say that I saw a funny quote earlier that said, um, someday in the Star Wars universe, there will come a figure so powerful that she is named after a government agency that protects the well-being of your workplace.
Which is pretty hilarious considering how she's like OSHA's job for a living is doing something that the Star Wars universe is saying is illegal.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
like
hilarious.
she's working in an illegal job that Astrom actually be doing and not her. So yeah, that's definitely pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Let's see. I
I think
also okay.
Jackie is an entertaining character.
Yeah, I was going to say I like Zeki a lot. Zeki is probably the one character who I will say, if Zeki comes to harm, I will riot. So for those that listen to our Tokyo Secrets podcast, think of Saya or Kotaha.
Yeah.
Same kind of thing for me there.
Yeah, she's a
And
very likable character.
yeah. And my big thing is I liked Yord's Padawan Tassie Loa, but we didn't really get a chance to see a lot of her. She's gone so quickly, but she was very interesting to me.
Yeah, and I'm wondering why she's not on this mission too, because like, isn't Yor directly responsible for her training? So why does he go on this mission but not her?
I so it might be a similar situation to when Anakin and Ahsoka split up every now and then, and Ahsoka went on like missions with other Jedi Master.
Yeah, I guess.
So maybe another Jedi Master said, "Hey, let me take the youngling and teach them something different," like how happened in Clone Wars for Ahsoka.
Yeah. Okay, that
But
makes sense.
but I want more Tasi before the end of the series because I like her design. I like her attitude. So I just want to see her on screen more. Vanestra for me is kind of eh. Like I don't have high opinions of her, but I also don't have low opinions of her. It's just kind of there.
Yep.
Who did I miss? Did I miss anyone important? Oh, I guess let's talk about Mai, huh?
Yeah, we should probably talk about her for a little bit.
Yeah, so Mai is a very fascinating villain for the Jedi Order because she is very capable of fighting Jedi and killing them. Because that move, when she is fighting Master Indara in the beginning, at the end, whenever like she feigns Indara's attention to look at the barkeep to save him at the cost of the other dagger going for her chest. That is something that I would have assumed that Indara would have caught, even though she was distracted because she would be able to sense it in the Force. But it makes sense that she may not notice it because her attention's being divided and her blood pressure's kind of going up and adrenaline's kind of rushing in to save that guy. So I could see her getting clouded there, but it's still that's a good tactic to be using like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a good move there. And also the way she kills Torben is also pretty interesting. What do you think of it?
Yeah, for sure. But I would probably say that like if they, I mean, we probably already got like some shades of like what she's like, but with what we have so far, she's already kind of an interesting villain that
Yeah.
that one could probably say is that, you know, she not quite the same thing as Count Dooku and how he was kind of used as a pawn in Palpatine's little scheme, but similar in a way where she went through like a really horrible trauma. She lost everyone. She thought she lost her sister because she thought that Osha was dead. And now here she is being manipulated by someone. We don't know who he is, and we won't know for a while, but someone who is clearly at least trying to like plant the seeds for an eventual eradication of the Jedi, and she's just being used by him, and she has no idea what like who he is. It's more than likely just a case where like she wants to get revenge on these particular sets of Jedi, and the Sith Lord is using her motivation for revenge as to be sort of a proxy to eradicating the Jedi, like kind of like how, you know, Palpatine used Dooku as his own little proxy, because for the longest time, like the Jedi thought that Dooku was the only person behind the whole separatist crisis, when in reality Dooku was just a proxy for Palpatine. So, and again, like I don't the comparisons with Dooku don't match up entirely, but the roles are similar, if you know what
Yeah.
I mean.
I I don't know if I agree with her being like Dooku. Um she feels more like Maul in terms of how Palpatine uses him.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, Maul, one of two of Palpatine's little proxy Siths.
Yeah, because Dooku is disillusioned by the Jedi Order, and he goes a little bit more willingly. Maul, I think, is straight up manipulated the entire way. Like, it's a difference of I manipulated it with a lie, and now you're acting on the lie, and you're acting of your own free will. or Maul, where it's more like, hey, I'm gonna manipulate you every step of the way and just wreck you.
Or it could potentially just be that, the Jedi did probably genuinely do something terrible, and they're in the same way that, like, how Dooku was technically manipulated by Palpatine by legitimate issues with the Jedi Order and Senate, and he's using those truths to, like, manipulate her in a way, if that makes sense.
No, it does, and it's possible that that's what's happening as well. But no, definitely a very interesting character. I want to know more about her, and I want to see what happens in the end, because it's interesting that we got twins, one on the good side, one on the dark side here.
Yep.
Also, is it just me, or does it seem like when Osa was trying to grab that tool in the scene on the ship, that her force connections kind of severed a little bit, or kind of weaker, because she couldn't do it.
Yeah, it could possibly be that she was weaker, but it's also potentially, but it could also potentially be that she was cut off from the Force, because the Jedi did do that to some degree. Well, okay, I don't know any instances that they did it, but they do try to do it to the main character, and that's the Old Republic too, in
Yeah,
the Legends continuity. So it's
yeah, I've heard
possible.
it. I've heard it happening before in the Legends continuity, but I don't think they cut off her connection per se. I was reading something a couple of days ago about how some Jedi or some people who are force sensitive don't get access to their powers immediately. Like, you can tell from a very early age, Anakin is already in tune with the Force. He's using it and doing it well with the pod racing and other stuff. But then you got characters like Sabine and Rey and Luke, even. They kind of needed a catalyst to set him off. And for Luke, it's the catalyst of losing his uncle and the family, and Obi-Wan being there to kind of become his mentor. And, for Rey, it's when she starts getting, like, when she has like a near-death experience, like with the lightsaber coming at her, and that's what kind of triggers her to get a catalyst to start using the Force powers a lot more. Um, so I think, like, I know it's kind of a cliche way to say it, but I think in some Force sensitive people, the Force has to be awakened,
Yeah.
which is why the movie, I think, is called Force Awakens, is because Rey, while she was probably Force sensitive all her life, she didn't really show any sign of it until that moment.
Yeah, for sure.
And I don't know if Luke had ever shown any sign of it prior to that, but once he got it, he accelerated pretty quickly in learning stuff and becoming powerful.
Well, yeah, I mean, he initially, like, his first calling to the Force was when he was able to use it to destroy the Death Star. Then, like, we see him, like, kind of self teach himself a little bit to where he gets to the point where he's able to call his lightsaber to his hand in The Empire Strikes Back. But then he has to learn everything from Yoda, which, again, and we went into a discussion of, like, how long he was with Yoda,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's a bit more debatable. But yeah, definitely, like, she it could be more about, like, her force skills are a little rusty, and it's not been awakened in her. Like, it's just been, like, put to sleep a little bit. Like, I don't know. We'll probably learn a bit more details as the show goes on.
Yeah, the thing I was reading about it, like, it was saying it's partly to do with the connection of master to apprentice in those early days. And so, for example, with Sabine didn't really have a connection with Ahsoka like a master and Padawan would. because Ahsoka didn't feel like she was capable to teach Sabine and to be her mentor, and Sabine felt also like she was not worthy of this gift, and so they were kind of not on the same page about it, and that dampened the connection. And the way they got on the same page is after she sees Anakin at the World Between World place, and she comes back with like confidence now that okay, I can do this, I'm worthy of it, and that's when Sabine starts to really accelerate her power as well and start to use it better.
Yeah,
So I think
definitely.
something similar could be happening here with Osa, where when she had her master, she was doing great. She lost her master in that connection, and now she's kind of struggling again. It makes sense to me, but I don't quite know if that's a thing that's in the universe, you know?
Yep. But do we want to briefly talk about some of the other Easter eggs here?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. Unless you want to give some other thoughts on the last episode.
Go through the Easter eggs and I'll come back to it.
Okay, cool. So I already mentioned some of the Easter eggs here, but so at the beginning of the episode, Mai asks the question of where is your Jedi at the beginning of a series, which this establishes the many planetary systems of the galaxy have their own local Jedi temples. This was first established in the Knights of the Old Republic saga of Legends, and it's been adapted into canon through the High Republic saga. The ship that Yord and Tassi arrive on to interrogate Osha on the Trade Federation ship, that is a Jedi Vector fighter. These starfighters originally appeared in The Light of a Jedi, very first installment of the High Republic era. They are pretty much the standard Jedi starfighters that are used all throughout the books and comics that make up the High Republic era. This one appears to be an upgraded appearance, which makes sense given this takes place much later in the High Republic era. The Jedi robes worn in these two episodes are consistent with the books and comics that have previously shaped the High Republic era. The white and gold robes worn by Yord and Tassi on the Trade Federation ship are temple robes meant for more formal occasions, whilst the brown and beige robes that we see Yord, Sol, and Jeki wear are mission robes meant for more extreme missions where combat is to be expected. Um, I've already mentioned the stuff about Vernestra and Karlak. At one point, Master Soul, while instructing the younglings, tells them to close their eyes and tell him what they're seeing using the Force. One of the younglings says that they see an ocean, which is very similar to what happened. I don't remember which High Republic novel mentioned this, but apparently a Jedi Master, Elzar Mann, he lived in an earlier time in the High Republic era, also saw the Force as an ocean because it's a very common trend in the High Republic era that the Jedi of this era see the Force in many different ways, which is also kind of a different with how one Jedi youngling says she sees fire. So yeah, this is definitely very consistent with how some of the Jedi see the Force in the High Republic era, where they have many people have different relationships with the Force. And finally, Kamir's speech to May about the Jedi's dominance in the name of peace. He says, peace is, and then May annoyingly finishes the phrase, a lie. This is a reference to the first passage of the Sith Code, the entire Sith Code being, quote, peace is a lie. There is only passion. Through passion, I gain strength. Through strength, I gain power. Through power, I gain victory. Through victory, my chains are broken. The Force shall free me, unquote. Which is pretty cool. I like that. That was first established in the Knights of the Old Republic era, fittingly enough, too. And yeah, that wraps up the little Easter egg section. So, what else did you want to add, Riz?
Um, I I think the only other thing I would probably add here is um I think the Sith Lord we saw at the end of episode 1 is probably not the master, it's probably the apprentice. Because if you look at the timeline, this would be around the time that we had Plagueis around, right?
Possibly, but it probably not though. Like it because like probably a few more years would have to pass because I mean because I know Palpatine is old, but he wouldn't have been so old that he would have been around like 100 years before the Battle of Naboo.
Well, I think Plagueis could have been around and had other apprentices before Palpatine.
Possibly.
I mean, do we know Plagueis' race? Because I don't know it.
He's apparently so in canon. Looking this up right now, Plagueis' race was a moon, which which is the same species as the people who run the banking clan in the prequel era. And
so how long do they live?
Well, I don't know. All we know is that Plagueis died 100 years after this, actually, because officially in canon, the year of his death is recognized as 32 BBY.
Oh, okay. Maybe, maybe not. Kind of close.
I mean, possibly. We'll just have to see.
Yeah. But no, other than that, I mean, I like this 2-part episode a lot. I thought it was a pretty strong opening. Episode 2, I'd probably give it a 9 for being pretty awesome.
Oh, and by the way, just to answer your question, Riz, okay, this could possibly be Plagueis because apparently moons have a lifespan of more than 100 standard years, and here we are 100 years before the Battle of Naboo, exactly. So,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, maybe Plagueis does somehow play into this.
And see, that'd be very interesting because then we're connecting the Acolyte back to the main story by showing like a prequel to even Palpatine and his master in the early days. I think that'd be really awesome. That's where we ended.
Yeah, but we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, I definitely agree with you. This is a 9 for me.
Yeah, this series is really awesome. I think this is probably one of the more hyped things I've watched in a while.
Yeah, for sure. I don't want to call this my favorite live action Disney Plus series.
No, I'm not doing that yet.
I would probably have that be Ahsoka, believe it or not.
Same.
But at the same time, though, I have to say this: like, I would definitely call this better than Andor for sure, just because Andor, like, this is starting off really slow in the same way that Andor started off pretty slow. But I'm at least intrigued to like see how this whole thing ends. While I mean, I could barely get through like 2.5 episodes of Andor, which I know we're gonna review Andor at some point, but I mean, much like how we tend to be somewhat unintentionally contrarian on the Toku Secrets podcast,
Oh God.
we're kind of contrarian here too, because like everybody can't stop kissing Andor's butt in the fandom, and yet, as far as you and I are concerned, Riz, we're kind of in the minority there.
Yeah, we are, and we have to watch Andor before season 2 drops later this year.
Yeah, I know.
So we better find a way to get through it, and
kind of like
force our way to the end of Andor season 1.
And for people who are listening to us, I mean, we swear we're not doing this intentionally. In the same way, we don't intentionally do stuff on the Toku Secrets podcast. We just happen to have different opinions. I'm a Super Sentai fan base. Most people hate Ginga Man. We love Ginga Man. Most fans love to kiss Geki Ranger's butt. We hate Geki Ranger. Most fans kiss Lost Galaxy's butt. We hate Lost Galaxy. Like, it's an unfortunate trend, but it's something that we're not doing intentionally here, folks.
At least in the Star Wars stuff, we've been more consistent with the fandom for the most part.
Yeah.
Everyone loves Bad Batch. Everyone loves Mando for the most part. A lot of people didn't like Ahsoka, but they're kind of crazy if they don't like Ahsoka, in my opinion.
Yeah. But do we want to add anything else?
No, I think I have said all the things that I would want to say for this two-parter. And I look forward to seeing the next part next week.
Yep, same here. So we hope you guys enjoyed the Acolyte premiere as much as we did. We will be taking a look at each episode as it airs, and we hope you guys will join us as we begin to venture into the Clone Wars era of the Star Wars universe. On the side, we're going to be taking a look at 2 books. We're going to be taking a look at Genndy Tarkovsky. Sorry if I keep mispronouncing this name, but his little 2003 micro series. We're, of course, going to look at The Majesty, that is Dave Filoni's 2008 series, and, also try to wrap up. And we're going to be wrapping up our review of The Bad Batch soon as we do Season 3. We hope you guys will join us for all of those things. We're definitely looking forward to bringing some great content for you in the second half of 2024. But until the time comes for our next adventure through the never-ending universe of Star Wars, we hope you guys all stay safe, and we'll see you next time. If you enjoy us here on the Jedi Squadron, then please consider checking out our other content, including the Anime Declassified podcast and the Toku Secrets podcast, which you can find on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, or on our website, animesecrets.org. And if you have anything that you would like for us to review that hasn't already been covered here on the Squadron, feel free to leave any commentary, whether it be in the YouTube comments down below or by reaching out to us personally on our website. Also, please follow us on our social media pages, Anime Secrets, on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram to keep up with our content as we post it. If you're listening to us on Spotify or iTunes, we thank you so much and ask you to please leave us a rating out of 5 stars. If you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed, like the video, and leave any comments down below that you may give in your commentary or stuff you want us to review, and so on and so forth, and we will give your commentary a shout out on the Squadron, as we absolutely love to give our fans the shout outs that they deserve. With all that said, we thank you so much for listening to us here on the Jedi Squadron podcast, and we will see you next time for our next adventure through the amazing world of Star Wars. But until that time, the Squadron is preparing to enter hyperspace once again, so you all stay safe, we love you, and may the Force be with you.